welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are out in the garden today at my trellis tunnel here. It is mid-September and it is about that time to go ahead and pull our summer crops in preparation for a fall and winter garden, or just in preparation for amending the soil and getting our beds to sleep for the winter and ready for next spring. If you are vertical gardening, you are probably going to run into the issue of not being able to rotate your crops properly. So crop rotation, real quick, is just the idea of planting different families of crops in succession with each other so that we're not robbing the same nutrients out of the soil over and over again. And it's just a good way to keep your soil healthy by not planting the same plant in the same spot year after year. But when you have a vertical structure, it's permanent, right? Or at least semi-permanent. This, to me, in my mind, is permanent. I'm not going to move this entire trellis all over my garden each year. So to still be able to treat the soil well and amend the soil well and just ensure that I'm not robbing it and depleting it of nutrients, this is what I do. And the key is to not pull up the plants. So after we grow something that is nitrogen heavy, which is a lot of our trellising or staked up plants like your cucumbers, your vining squash or winter squash, tomatoes, things like that, they all pull nitrogen from the soil. So when you go next spring to then plant your cucumbers again, there's not going to be enough nitrogen in the soil. And so we need to do something to fix that. So after I pull my cucumbers or summer zucchini, what I will do is plant something in the legume family. That's going to be any of your peas, your green beans, your black beans, your pinto beans, any type of bean or pea. English sweet peas is good. And that's because everything in the legume family fixes nitrogen into the soil. I don't fully understand the scientific process of how all that happens, but legumes can actually take nitrogen from the air and fix it into their root systems. It's a really fantastic way to get nitrogen back into the soil without having to purchase synthetic nitrogen at the store. So after I will pull my summer crops, I will plant a crop of green beans or peas or something like that. This year I did some rattlesnake pole beans, and I actually didn't plant them for the sake of harvesting. I planted them for the sake of getting nitrogen into the soil, but also letting the pods dry on the vine, and now we'll use those as my seeds for next year so that I don't have to buy more of those green beans. So when it comes time to get ready for that fall or winter garden, or get ready to put our garden to sleep, we're actually not going to pull the roots out of the soil. Here's what we're going to do instead. I'm going to bring you up a little bit closer so you can see kind of what's going on down here. So here is the base of the green bean, and just where it goes into the ground. So instead of what we would normally do is take the plant and rip it out of the soil, instead we're going to take scissors and we're going to cut the plant at soil level and leave the root system in the ground. And this, by the way, this is another trick I learned last year. By cutting these, in the next 3 days, this whole vine is going to die. It's going to turn brown and shrivel up, and it's going to be much easier to detach from the trellis. I learned last year that it is really difficult to pull live plants from the trellis, especially vining plants, because they're all wound up in there. But if you cut them and let them die and then pull them up, it's a whole lot easier. So it's kind of two benefits in one. But the reason why we are cutting them and leaving the roots in the soil is because the legume family, like I said, fixes nitrogen into the soil. And for the sake of just demonstrating this, I did uproot a green bean plant down here, and I wanted to show y'all this. Let me bring it up closer. I wanted to show y'all what that looks like. If you have ever pulled peas or green beans and you saw little balls on the roots, and maybe you thought it was a disease or a fungus, because it does kind of look like a fungus, but that is actually the root nodules where that's fixing nitrogen. And I really hope the camera can pick this up, but in the midst of all that dirt, you will see little white balls. There are some clusters right in that area. There's some right here. There's some right here. And they're all over this. They're all over these roots. Here's another little nodule. Those little white balls. And that is where it's pulling nitrogen from the air and fixing it into its roots. And it's just amazing. It's, praise the Lord, the way he designed creation and everything to just work so beautifully with each other. But that's why we want to leave the root in the ground. We want to just cut it at soil level, and all those roots are going, that nitrogen is going to be going back into the soil. But not only that, these roots are going to be food for worms. Worms are going to come and they're going to enjoy eating some of these things, and some other microorganisms, good bacteria, everything is going to be feeding and multiplying in that soil because it has something to eat on. And it's all going to work together to produce a better quality soil when we go to plant the same type of crop in spring of next year. Because remember, I'm not moving this whole trellis, so it's staying there. I still need to plant my vining crops there, so I need to figure out some way to get the nitrogen back into the soil, and this is how I do it, and it has worked wonderfully. So anything in the legume family, go ahead and plant those right after you pull your cucumbers, zucchini, any nitrogen heavy feeding plant. Go ahead and follow it up with your peas and beans. The good news is that peas and beans, well, beans especially, they love hot, hot, hot heat. So after some of those other plants are struggling in the heat, you can go ahead and pull those, and you can actually still get a good harvest of beans. Now, sweet peas typically like cooler weather. So if you, let's say you want to get every last cucumber you possibly can, go ahead and leave those in the ground. And then when your weather starts cooling down, cucumber season is over, then go ahead and plant some sweet peas because they like cooler weather, and they will do the same thing. They'll form these root nodules, get some nitrogen back into your soil, and you are able to prep your trellis for next year. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful to y'all. We will see you next time. Bye.